Today, the big issue that we are looking at is the issue of user privacy, which is being cited both by social media giants according to their convenience to substantiate and justify the decisions taken by them, and by center as well when it suits them to set the new rules. That's the larger issue. Remember, viewers, Facebook and Twitter have a user base of more than 50 lakh in India. WhatsApp has a user base of 459 million active users. So these social media intermediaries have huge stakes in India. Now, is that why the center gets a lot of bargaining power, knowing that the stakes are huge for these companies? Today, WhatsApp has approached the Delhi High Court, declining to entertain the provision that has been asked for by the central government to break end-to-end encryption if required in certain objectionable content to trace the originator. Now, WhatsApp says in court that requiring messaging apps to trace chats is equivalent to asking us to keep a fingerprint of every single message on WhatsApp, which would break end-to-end encryption. And fundamentally here, is WhatsApp really concerned about user privacy? Why then does it not agree to change the other rule where it talks about sharing data with Facebook? In that sense, the center is objecting, saying that compromises user privacy. So it is, of course, a lot of contradictions, a lot of duplicity. One on the issue of tracing the originator of a message when it comes to so-called objectionable content. The other on the issue of sharing data with parent company. That's also another issue. But first, we are going to track what happened in court today as we are talking about WhatsApp filing a plea in the Delhi High Court challenging the new IT guidelines. Ayushman is with us with more. Yes, Ayushman, tell us about the proceedings in court and the arguments from both the sides. Okay, Ayushman is not connected with us. So we were talking about the double speak, the double standards, and the duplicity, both on the part of the WhatsApp and social media intermediaries and on the part of the government. On the issue of end-to-end encryption, like I said, the WhatsApp wants to disclose the identity. The government wants WhatsApp to disclose the identity of the first originator of information, which WhatsApp has declined, saying that would compromise end-to-end encryption. But on other issues, WhatsApp also taking liberties with user privacy, especially when it comes to the issue of sharing data with the parent company. I want to go across first to Ritesh Bhatia. I also have Jiten Jain. Ritesh Bhatia, cybersecurity expert. Jiten Jain, also a cybersecurity expert, joining us this afternoon. Ritesh, first coming to you. Like I said, isn't this a double standard? On one hand, you have WhatsApp telling court that we cannot break the sanctity of end-to-end encryption. It will compromise with user privacy. Why then are they so loath to then comply with the government rules which say that you cannot share data with Facebook? There, the user privacy is not compromised?
Thank you, Afrida, for having me on the show. Always a pleasure. Definitely, I agree. This is a double standard. And I think, when you're dealing with such a huge population and, we are like the biggest, the user base for them, we are the biggest over here. They really need to comply with the government over here. There are absolutely no two thoughts on this particular part. And if you look at their own this thing, if they really, really care about the privacy, then why are they talking about sharing their data with the Facebook also? And here, if you see that so many things are happening on WhatsApp, and as a cybercrime investigator, if I have to tell you, then, the investigators, law enforcement agencies, and many other people are actually like handicapped because WhatsApp provides no support. I have personal experiences also, in fact, in cases related to child sexual abuse material, which is also incorrectly referred as the child pornography. We have seen that we received no support. It's been 3 years, we received no support from WhatsApp. So for such a, the most, the dirtiest of the issue, something that really affects the children, if these people have not supported us at that point of time, then I think it's only the law that can stop people like WhatsApp. Afrida.
Yes, because it is threatening. Initially, it was threatening to reduce user functionality for those users who do not agree to its new privacy rules. Now, of course, it's retracted, saying, okay, user functionality will not be reduced even if you don't give consent. We are yet to get a final word on it. But coming to you again, Mr. Jiten Jain, on this issue of double standards, the government also on one hand objects to sharing data with parent companies, saying it's a breach of privacy. On the other hand, it wants access to the originator of a message whenever it comes to objectionable content. Now, who decides? If the center, if the party in power decides what is objectionable content, then of course it's going to raise the hackles on whether this is stifling freedom of speech.
I think first I would like to correct you that it is not the party in power which decides, it is the government in power which decides, and government is for everyone, for every political party, every citizen. And they are the custodians of the rights of 1.4 billion people of India. Now, number one, look at the doublespeak of WhatsApp. From last 4 months, every quarter of society has raised strong objections to the arm twisting by WhatsApp to force people to accept their new privacy policy. A policy which is different from their privacy policy in Europe. Because in European Union, they are not going to share their data with Facebook or other parent companies, or even for sister companies like Instagram. It is only in India they are having this the colonial mindset that they can do and get away with everything they want, and they are doing this despite of objections by a large section of society. So first they threatened that if you don't accept this policy, by this date I will block your account. Then when the outcry happened, they said, okay, fine, I'll extend the date, I will not block your account. Then they said, okay, fine, I will keep spamming you with alerts 7 times a day till the time you by accident or by mistake accept my policy, so that I can take your tricked consent, not the informed consent. Then they say that even then now, if you do, then I'll start curtailing the services. I will stop your calls, I will stop your messages and all those things. But this is nothing but threat mongering. They are pointing a gun on your head, but they will never fire the bullet, because the moment they do, they will be out of India. Somebody will go and sue them in the court. So these are just theatrics on behalf of WhatsApp. So here, a company which wants to have access to your personal conversations and give it to other companies to give you precision advertisements. On the other hand, when the government says, look, in law and order situations like terrorism incidents or some rumor mongering where people have lost their lives or national security issues, we want to track who was the first uploader of a particular message which led to a riot or a terrorism incident. Now, a company which says, now we want to defend users' privacy policy, a company
yes,
which
but wouldn't you agree as a cybersecurity expert that that would lead to breaking into the end-to-end encryption, which is what WhatsApp is saying? How can we do that? Because that is something which is sanctimonious for them, which they cannot break. Can they do it without breaking the end-to-end encryption?
Precisely. Now, that is the question. It should be. This is the propaganda these companies have been running, that if you force us to track the messages, then we'll have to fingerprint everything and end-to-end encryption will be broken. Question should be, can tracing of the originator of a message can be done without breaking the encryption? Yes, it is possible. They are already doing it. I mean, how do they track a message is new or forwarded many times? You would have seen on your WhatsApp, sometimes you get a pop-up that this message has been forwarded many times and you can only forward it to 4 people. If it is so end-to-end encrypted, how are you tracking the number of times a message has been forwarded? So, you see, tracking the metadata of a message or fingerprinting a message does not mean that you're actually going to read the content. And I agree with WhatsApp on one point. It may not be practically possible to track each and every message, but it is certainly very, very much practical and possible to track images, videos, documents which have been shared, which are usually the culprit behind the larger issues like Toolkit and all those things. So for WhatsApp to say that this thing will break end-to-end encryption,
Mr. Jiten Jain, there is a problem when it comes to WhatsApp. When it comes to Twitter, if there is any doubtful content or fake content, they have decided to market manipulative media, which on a platform like Twitter, it is possible. On a platform like WhatsApp, such a thing, such a facility is not possible perhaps, because these two platforms have very different, way that it operates. Do you think there are operational difficulties in introducing those checks and balances for WhatsApp? They have certain compulsions of their own?
Look, see, law is independent of the type of platform, so law is for everyone. WhatsApp, I agree, they may not mark a message as manipulated media. They should not also. See, the problem with Twitter with this manipulated media tag is not that why they have marked. It is the process by which they have marked. Usually, you would very well know there are a lot of fact checkers in India. If you mark as a story as a fake, then you have to give A, B, C, D reasoning and a fact check story by any fact checker. And this is after anybody can cross-verify that with evidence. Now, here in the case of Toolkit, what Twitter had done without any evidence or investigation, they had simply marked a tag as manipulated. Now, that is where the controversy is, that what is the process you have carried out? How have you figured out whether it is fake or real? It may be fake, I don't know. But what is the process by which you have figured out whether it is fake or manipulated media? Second, for Twitter, it is very easy to track the origin of a message. Anybody can do it because it is a public
No, but
platform.
to be fair again, to be the devil's advocate, if you like, they are not taking it down. They're just marking it manipulative media. Now, this is like damned if you do,
No,
damned
no,
if you
no,
don't.
no, no.
Till
This
the
is
time
so,
they were
no,
not marking it
no, no,
fake
no, no,
news,
no,
we
no,
were
no, no,
blaming Twitter
no.
for not taking any action again and allowing a lot of fake content to float around. Now, when they have
Yes.
started doing it, it's a problem. Is the problem only with the physiology that you have? That why are they calling it manipulative? What would you like it to be called?
No, no. See, if somebody posts a video of Bangladesh and say that it is a video of Reut in Calcutta, obviously you can mark it as fake because anybody can cross-verify. If you post a 5-year-old video of some state and saying that it has happened 2 days back, then it is a lie. If you show the videos of last year's lockdown as the video of this year's lockdown, it is also fake because anybody can cross-verify like any fact-check story published by any platform, including yours. But to
No,
say
but
that
these
you have to prove that
decisions the social media intermediaries have taken in their wisdom. Just like you say, the center or the
it
party
cannot
in
be
power
a system.
makes rules
It,
for the
it,
country. Similarly, these are international companies. They may be doing their own research to understand how to sort of,
yeah,
what tag to put and for which pose. Okay, I'll come back to you. Ritesh Bhatia, let me also bring you into the conversation because let's, for the sake of our viewers, run through the rules that the government proposes. This was a press conference held on the 25th of February, both by the IT Minister and the Law Minister, where they have set 4 important new compliances that include, firstly, all significant social media intermediaries were required to appoint a chief compliance officer. They have not done that. Grievance redressal cell, they have not done that. Active monitoring of harmful content. What is wrong in it? It's a fair enough a rule to have that social media intermediaries were asked to deploy technology-based measures and tools to determine harmful content. Compliance report. Now, this is where perhaps the problem arises, where social media intermediaries were asked to publish a monthly report containing details of complaints received, action taken, number and links of information removed, or where access is disabled. Then, of course, the 4th rule of removing or disabling access to information in case of any objectionable information, which has to be removed by an intermediary on its own accord, or otherwise provide reasonable opportunity for a user to dispute action. Now, if you look at it, Ritesh Bhatia, on the surface, there's absolutely nothing unjustified about any of this. It just says that you need to have certain rules in place to check objectionable content. Why are social media intermediaries loath to do so? Why are they going to the extent of approaching court, knowing that after all they have huge stakes in this country? If they're asked to shut shop, they'll lose business, won't they?
That's because Afrida, they think they are, above the law as far as this country is concerned, or in fact any democratic country is concerned. They think they are above the law. And you were talking about the last point of objectionable content. There is one more point over there. If the content talks anything related even to nudity, it also talks about a morphing. Then it needs to be done within 24 hours. Okay, fine. Now you say that it is the big tech giants are saying that, look, 3 months is a very short period to have a grievance officer, to have a nodal officer, and to have a compliance officer. But this thing, where they have said that within 24 hours you can remove the content if somebody is saying, I think that's a no-brainer. You don't have to actually investigate. Whether, because here is a victim, the victim is saying, look, my images are getting viral. It is there, let's say on a particular platform, on Facebook or Instagram. I just want you to bring this down. And if the victim is trying to give you her actual photographs also, and that, why would she put it up over there? So I think, they just need to bring that down. So where is the
Okay, I think I've lost the line with Mr. Bhatia. Coming to you, Jiten Jain, if you heard Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi speaking just a short while ago, the Congress party is raising their heckles over the fact that the centre wants to control social media. It wants to set the rules of engagement to its advantage. What he says is, if the social media intermediaries are forced to disclose the originator of a certain message, that would open out a Pandora's box. Now, these new rules, according to the Congress party at least, is a huge breach to the right to privacy, which is a fundamental right. How do you counter that?
See, before we take this debate further, I think everyone in this country should know that what is the state of these companies like Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp in India. These companies claim protections under IT Act that we are intermediaries. We cannot be criminally sued or hold accountable or liable for any content. And that protection is only available to the platforms which do not manipulate, edit, censor, touch, add, subtract anything to the content. For example, a telecom operator, when you and me have a call, telecom operator does not decide, add or tag any label to our conversations. Like your ISP, whatever sites you're browsing, they don't change data in between. They don't say this is fake or this, that. Likewise, if Twitter has to decide if it wants to be an intermediary, then they should not do any tagging, manipulation, edit, or censorship of data. It should be left to some other law enforcement or other compliance agency. If they want to do it, if they want to delete tweets like they did in the case of Donald Trump, if they want to ban accounts, if they want to do censorship of data, then they will be held accountable like any other platform, like news channels. For example, Mirror Now today is responsible for their own content. If you broadcast something which is against society, you can be sued in a court with a criminal liability. Twitter and Facebook today cannot be, because they say we are only a platform. We don't upload content. We are not responsible because we don't do anything with the content. From last 2-3 years, these people have been manipulating with the content. They've been deleting tweets. They've been labeling tweets. They've been blocking accounts. So once you get into censorship and some sort of moderation of content, you can no longer be take protections as an intermediary. Now, number two, see what Abhishek Manu Singhvi is saying. It is a political argument. It is his political party which wants this toolkit to be investigated because they think it is fake. If the government wants to figure out who was the person who has uploaded this fake toolkit, they said you don't have to do it. It is a political argument. But I'll tell you one thing. It is such a sad story in India that a government files an affidavit in the Delhi High Court and says that this WhatsApp's privacy policy, which everybody has been criticizing, is against the IT law of India. And you know who's defending WhatsApp in the court? Former IT Minister of India, under whose IT Act were drafted, Mr. Kapil Sibal. It sends a message that our entire country is up for sale. These big techs can manipulate entire system, bring off anyone, manipulate anyone. You see, it's such a sad thing to see a former IT minister defending a foreign company against their own government. They should have never been done.
To be fair, again, Mr. Jiten Jain, there are duplicity on both the sides. I agree to what you're saying to a certain extent, but it's also true that on the part of the government as well, there's been a lot of inherent contradictions in its policies. Whether the government is really careful or really, sensitive to user privacy and the right to privacy, that remains doubtful at this stage, because it wants to intervene at a lot of levels. Now, what you're saying is correct to one extent, but of course, the fact remains here that at one level, the government wants to intervene. At another level, what you are saying, that platforms are also intervening a lot. There is an overreach when it bans accounts or when it blocks accounts or when it pulls down tweets. That also is intervention into freedom of speech. So I guess it cuts both ways. I would have to end the conversation here. Thanks so much for joining us, Jiten Jain and Ritesh Bhatia. I'm afraid we lost the line with him earlier. Thanks so much for joining us.